Alright guys, welcome to another page review. This time we're reviewing a MANAA that is on coffeeoriginals.co.za. Right? You can go ahead and read this for yourself on our website. This is a one-shot by our boy Luck. So if you haven't heard already, we are doing a mass special, okay? Coffee reviews for $35, covering 60 pages, right? So if you want your own review, that's going to cost you $35 for 60 pages. So let's get right into this. So this is Kishin, the Chosen by Luck, right? Now, right off the bat, this MANAA is truly an amazing blend of some of the best shonen titles out there. A true Naruto fan will be able to spot that Luck over here was deeply inspired by Naruto, right? Now, before we get into all of that, in terms of the four ingredients over here, which is the four MANAA ingredients: hope, relatability, familiarity, and inspirational. Now, believe it or not, it has 2 out of 4. Though this was a great experience, it has 2 out of 4. And what are those 2? It has familiarity. If you read this, you will be greatly reminded, if you play the video game, God Eater, right? If you play God Eater, especially the sister in the series here, like here she is, she legit looks like this character in God Eater. I first encountered God Eater when I bought the game on PSP years ago, and then the anime came out. I don't know if Luck watched the anime, but it's a pretty good anime, pretty high budget, you know. I recommend it. Something to chill, eat snacks and watch, right? There's 2 video games out of it. Pretty nice game, right? So the first thing that it reminded me of on the basis of familiarity was this video game over here, and it's also an anime. Secondly, when we explore the dynamics of the characters, right? The character development and so on, it very much so reminds me of Naruto. Also, parts of the world building kind of reminds me of Naruto. Parts of the power system reminds me of Naruto. So yeah, you're gonna have a field day if you're a big fan of Naruto. This is a proper blend of Naruto and God Eater and a bunch of other shonen titles. A little bit of Hunter x Hunter over there. You're just gonna experience pure fun. The second part on the 4 ingredients is relatability, right? For me, it is relatable to a small extent, not to a big one. Now, if you have a sister, right? If you have a sister as a guy, you'll probably be able to relate a little bit if you care about your sister. Now, in this story, it's to toxic levels that the brother is going. But I question myself that would I go that far for my sister, right? Have I actually ever been possessive of my sister? Because I remember when she told me or I found out she had a boyfriend, I'm like, who is this nigga? Let me see his photo. Where does he work? Yada, yada, yada. So I didn't think I was being possessive. I just wanted to make sure it's not some criminal, you know. But in this story, the brother goes a tad far, right? So the other 2 that it's missing, which is hope and inspiration, the only reason it's lacking hope is because the fate of the main characters, the whole chosen ones, seems rather bleak and it seems determined. There wasn't a single glimpse of hope of them getting out of this alive, right? They are fated to lose their powers at a certain age, right? And when they do, it looks like they are just discarded. So it looks like they are all a ticking time bomb. So I'm like, that's not really hopeful, even if they destroy all the monsters that are remaining on this world, right? This is a post-apocalyptic world. In terms of its lack of inspiration, the thing is, this is part of the Naruto thing, right? Naruto was inspirational for a long while for us because Naruto was an underdog. He was not the chosen one. However, these characters, the important ones, the leading cast, they are chosen ones, right? So it's not really inspiring because normal humans seem to be just that, normal. Normal humans can't lay a finger on any of the monsters that need to be defeated. So on that aspect, a normal human being feels robbed of believing that he can go beyond. It's like, sorry, bro, you're just a guy. You can't go beyond. The only reason Berserk is so inspiring, right? Guts is just a guy that pushes his limit. So much so, he goes beyond. So much so that his willpower is able to challenge the power, right? The spirit power or the magical power of the apostles and so on. Many times, Guts came close to stabbing Griffith in his God hand mode, right? So that's inspiring. Sheer will force of the human spirit. So even though this mana does not have all four ingredients, it is a most enjoyable experience. It's an enjoyable experience. Artistically, this is straight up C rank, right? It's a C rank with a little bit of B rank rendering. It's a nice experience. Artistically, I see the My Hero Academia influence as well. So let's get right into it then. So we see a kid running away from a monster. And I gotta say that the names of the monsters are not generic. It's like Locke sat down and thought about them. So for me, I can't, immediately remember the names of the monsters, but it's so well thought out, right? And that's why I feel it belongs in a video game. I would buy this series as a game. I would buy it as a game. It would have to be like a God Eater game. If we actually quickly see any God Eater photos of the actual gameplay, just give me one. Is there one? Okay, you'll just have to find it for yourself, right? After all, it is an old game, but it's still enjoyable. Look at this photo over here. It reminds me of this. I would buy it as a game, right? So yeah, he's running away from this monster over here, and we are introduced to our main leads, Kaido and his sister over here. And I gotta say, man, maybe I know a lot of Kaidos, but we gotta find new names, man. Not another Kaido, man. But anyway, we're introduced to them. They're here to save this kid, but actually to get rid of this monster, because they work for an organization that gets rid of these monsters. And we're going to get a nice explanation as to where they come from and how it is that these guys have the power to even, fight against these monsters. So they storm in, see the monster, start fighting. And I gotta say, I know it's a one shot, but this is where the fight starts. And then the second page where the fight starts, there's already critical damage delivered on one of the main characters. I felt that was too soon. Usually when things like this happen, there needs to be a build-up, right? There needs to be some build-up, at least 2 pages of the character testing the monster or, playing around with it, and then boom, he gets stabbed like that with a critical wound, because here they are, the monster charges in, and I got to say, it's hard to see what's actually going on here. Some of the art direction in this one shot thus far, I ain't gonna lie, it's hard to see what's going on, bro. It's hard to see what's going on. It's intense, high energy, but it's like the positioning of what you're trying to show us, the compositional choice, falls short. It falls short. I really can't tell what just happened here. I thought he was kicking the monster. I thought he was jumping away. I thought the monster, as you can see here, it looks like it was about to swing its claw at him, but I don't know if it actually struck. I don't know if he repelled it. It's hard to see. So compositional choice, art direction as to how the fights are coordinated here and there is very hard to see sometimes. So a critical hit on Kaido, and he realizes that, okay, this monster is no pushover, but he doesn't seem to mind, even though it's very critical. And we then have our first display of their power, right? These chosen ones have different kinds of powers, right? They have a unique type of energy that they are born with. But in Kaido's case, looks like he can summon a bunch of monsters. And once again, all these monsters, right, like Mama Wati or Mama Wata, right? That's an actual real monster that is in the Nigerian mythos. And I think it's the same monster that is in, believe it or not, the Zulu mythos. We just call her Mamlambo, right? So it's pretty interesting that, wait, the entirety, I don't want to say the entirety, but I mean, the far northwest of Africa has a monster that is similar to the one that we have all the way down to the south. Interesting, right? Interesting. So he summons the monster and it heals him up, and then he summons a nine-tailed fox. Now, we all know, at least from what I remember, the nine-tailed fox is not a Naruto standalone creation. It's actually from Korean mythology, as far as I know, as far as I remember, right? So this was another part of a bit of Naruto influence, right? So now that he summoned these monsters, they go in. Look at the intensity of this fight, right? Very dynamic, very epic, very fun. But I gotta say that I didn't like the main characters at all, right? I don't have a character that I like. There's a character that I tolerate. There's a character that I'm okay with. But in general, for some reason, I didn't like any of them. I didn't like Kaido or his sister, right? Kaido being a crazy, rabid murderer, basically. The sister being the calm, composed one who reflects a lot. She almost became like a Katara, but I do like how cautious she is about her brother, seeing how insane and unstable he is. So I did like that part, but I don't like any of them like that. Why? Because their goals are not interesting to me, right? And you'll see what I mean by that. So here's another example where compositional choice might not have been a good idea over here. It was hard for me to decipher what is this part right here. If I didn't see that this is a foot, I wouldn't have not known or realized that, oh, Kaido is standing on top of the monster and he's about to slay it. I had to decipher that. And when a reader needs to decipher, spend quite some time to piece together what they're seeing as if it's almost hieroglyphics, well, that's a problem. Because now the whole general experience is ruined. You know, the sudden pauses in an intense moment like this, that just ain't a good look, right? But anyway, he lands a critical hit and cuts the monster's head off clean. And just like that, it's a wrap. And so now we get to the couple of pages where most people would accuse you of info dumping, right? A lot of exposition. I suppose to some extent, yeah, even though it is only 2 pages, right? Like, in fact, 1.5 pages, but I get it. Part of this, I see the Naruto influence as well. The Nine-Tailed Fox released 16 years ago, 12 years ago, blowing up the Hidden Leaf Village, right? I can see the influences. Feels nice, looks good, right? So what we get here is that 500 years ago, the apocalypse happened because humanity stopped worshiping God. They turned to idols, and God got upset and unleashed most of the idols that humanity was worshiping. And for 200 years, these monsters were slaughtering humanity, right? And then, centuries later, God decided to have mercy on humanity and allowed certain human beings to be born with the power to slay these monsters, right? These children are called the chosen. They were born with distinct amount of white hair right from birth, indicating the possession of Shinki. Using that energy, they could manifest abilities known as Shinshi, right? Shinshi. Unique to each individual, these children were born to save the world. Power system and the names of the power system is so Naruto, bro. It's cool. It doesn't feel like a ripoff. It is a proper borrowing of those ideas, and it just harmonizes well with the overall aesthetic of this series, right? Of this one shot. It blends very well. And then we are told about this organization here. Humanity was united with this hope, and the Global Godslayer Agency, the GGSA, was founded by the Japanese who first produced Chosen and defeated the dragon Junshi of Asia. At the GGCA, let's just call it the organization, right? At the organization, Chosen would train to become God Slayers, soldiers who raid monster territories to retake nations and rescue refugees, right? Now, in this moment, also a little bit of Naruto, right? The whole child soldier situation. Now, a lot of people that I noticed, Western people, were criticizing the end of Naruto as like, but Naruto didn't stop the Chunin exam, the Chunin exams. He never stopped the whole children military system. And I'm like, did Naruto ever say he wants to stop that? Because all he said was he wants to be Hokage. Now, a lot of people in the West wanted those systems to be dismantled, right? The whole child soldier program. But that is the world, you know? To break that is to break the entire world building. Unless if Naruto said he wants to put an end to that system so the kids can just live normal lives, then you can't really critique that, critique on that basis. So I never really understood that part, right? But in this regard, in this story, it looks like Luck might have had or saw a problem with that part in Naruto and decided to address it in his own story, which is very interesting, right? It's very interesting, we're going to see. So this was Kaido telling the little boy how they came to be and how him and his sister are one of the strongest because they have 90% white hair and so on. And as they're walking back to the refugee camp, they hear a skirmish of a child being taken away from his parents. And the little boy is puzzled as to like, hey, why is he crying, you know? And of course, Kaido saying, don't worry about it. They're going to make him a hero and so on. But in this moment, we see that the sister is bothered by this. Clearly, it looks like there is no free will for the chosen or humanity. The organization seems to just come and take your child away as young as possible, right? There is no real time to even bond with your child. If your child even survives fighting these monsters, well, they'll barely have any connection with you because they got taken away so young, right? So that is interesting. We are starting to see the problems of this world, problems with the system. The system says it's designed to help you, it's designed to protect you, but it's actually exploiting you. It's taking your most valuable asset, your most valuable resource, your child, your children. So this is interesting, right? That Luck is exploring these ideas, right? He's giving some commentary on all of this, right? Now, I don't know much about Nigeria like that, but I know in North Africa, them child soldier programs are legit. They're real, bro. They're real. You had Joseph Kony, who's still alive, a complete bandit who was out there abducting kids and making them soldiers in North Africa. You have Boko Haram, who does the exact same thing till to this day. I don't think they were caught. I think they're still doing their own thing. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Now, these social ills and social awareness, which Torishima spoke about in his book, that it's essential that a manga artist has social awareness, right? You gotta use them. You gotta extrapolate from reality. Luck most likely has seen or known somebody who got taken by Boko Haram, probably, right? I'm just guessing here, bro, but I'm sure you know somebody that got taken by Joseph Kony as well, right? Or in the neighboring country, that's exactly what happens. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's the general experience in the environment, whether through hearsay or true exposure to it. So now we see the two siblings going on their journey to slay more monsters and so on. And now they've reached a certain place where they say this is where a very dangerous monster is hiding. So they decide to raid the place only to encounter not monsters but fellow chosen warriors. And Hassan here, this chosen warrior, says, "Wow, these guys are pretty strong. So let's not fight. Let me just explain what we're trying to do here." So Hassan is the leader of the revolution. Very interesting. Picture Boruto going against the system of the ninja world, saying, you know what, we're gonna rebel. We don't want to be taken into the tuning exams. We want to just be normal kids and eat milk and cookies all day. Sorry, father, but we are dismantling the ninja world. Imagine that. So basically, that's kind of it. Though he presents some very, very good, compelling arguments over here that look, humanity is the one that sinned. God struck down the world because humans messed it all up. And now these humans are using us to clean up this mess. But what's going to happen basically when they're done with us, right? They experiment on us. We might be stronger than humans, but we experience the same pain as them. We have no freedom. We cannot choose our own destiny. We are taken from our parents so early. Yada, 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 right? The organization uses us and takes credit for what we do, for what we lose, for what we sacrifice, right? As it says here, and yet they still force us to fight until we hit 30, lose our powers, and succumb to our minuscule lifespan, all for what? To save humans? Do they need to exist? The apocalypse happened for a reason. We chosen were meant to replace humans. So this is a compelling argument, you know. The chosen was sent to destroy the monsters. That's what the organization says. As Kaido mentioned, that's what the elders say, right? So it means we don't actually know the full story here. We don't know the fullness of God's will over here, right? So that's gonna be interesting if we ever got to get more details on it. So Hassan and his revolution crew, they want to rebel against the organization, against humans as well, and want to have their own society. However, Kaido's not having it. He doesn't care. He says, we are chosen. We chosen are the only ones who can end the reign of these monsters. We've been doing that for the past century. Doesn't matter how. And now that we're down to just one monster, you want to trample upon the efforts of our predecessors? This rebellion of yours is just going to cause more trouble and waste more time. I don't have time. In a way, he's also right, right? He's also right because there's only one major monster left. And now you want to jump ship? It is kind of ridiculous. But the danger levels is so extreme, right? It's so extreme that these other chosen ones would rather not take the chance, you see. So part of the reasons I don't like Kaido is that he's a complete a-hole, like a massive douchebag, right? He's very selfish, but he does have a moment of humanity after he realizes that, okay, maybe I went too far here and there. But the damage has kind of been done, right? Overall, he displays his, or lets us know his main goal over here, right? He says, all that matters to me is exterminating the last Jushin so Big Sis and I can live normal lives in peace. And the faster I do that, the better. Now that is his main goal. We don't know what his sister's goal is. We don't know what a normal life looks like because despite there being only one monster remaining, there's still a lot of humans living in camps. And this reminded me of that 1984 George Orwell. Because right there, it tells us that the whole point of the party, its main mission is to keep humanity in perpetual suffering, constantly on the brink of complete annihilation, right? That's how you control the masses. And so, obviously, I can tell that now the organization is corrupt. But the mere fact that Kaido and his sister don't really question much about it. That, hey, what about recovered territories? Are recovered territories doing better? Are there sanctuary cities? Are there sanctuary regions? After all these centuries, surely enough resources have gone to places where we can consider a sanctuary, a paradise of some sort, because it's gotten rid of all the monsters that side. Well, we don't see none of that. We don't see the questioning of any of that, right? So that's why for me it felt partially shallow on the main character's side. Kaido wants to just live in peace with his sister. It's like, bro, there ain't no guarantee you want to do that. And if he's, let's say, 18 now, you only got 12 years to live. Well, 12 years to have your powers and probably be dead by 40. That is not an inspiring goal. You see why I said it doesn't have the inspirational part? Yeah, so anyway, he then says, well, guys, if you are not going to follow through with the organization, I guess I'm going to have to kill you. And unfortunately, a battle starts. Kaido kills one of the other Chosens, and all hell breaks loose, and they start fighting. And Hassan says, look, you killed her, and you broke the barrier that was keeping away the great monster over here. Well, Kaido doesn't care. He releases one of his strongest monsters. And let's go to the next chapter. He releases one of his strongest monsters, and the whole other chosen crew is totally bugged out. That's like, wait a minute, he has such a high level monster? This is crazy. So an all-out battle breaks out. They go in, dynamic fight, cool display of the power system yet more, right? And we see they go all out using their divine cores over here. And by striking each other, they cause a giant shockwave blowing up the building. Then we get a flashback of the siblings over here, how Kaido from a young age killed somebody because, well, apparently his reason was they wouldn't let big sister keep the cat. I only made sure they wouldn't bother her again, but it's time to train Kaido. I can't. So here Kaido looking like Killua for a split moment over here. He speaks for his sister. He is very possessive of his sister. And like for me, this made me reflect as like, was I ever like this? Nah, I was never psycho like this, you know. So this part is a bit relatable, but not to this toxic extent, right? So he is obviously ready to kill his own parents over here because he's greatly possessive of his sister. Now, one can wonder, what can make a sibling so possessive of their sister? I think maybe psychologically their sibling serves as their safe space, and they want full access and control, and they become selfish with that safe space, right? To the point where they become so toxically possessive, especially since their sister never tried to, call him to order or tell him to calm down. But in this moment, she mentions that she wants to train. And by saying so, well, it calms Kaido down so that he doesn't go crazy on his own parents. So we see the aftermath over here, and Hassan says, look, you want to get out of this, don't you? You got to help me. But Kaido cuts his head off, right? Cuts his head off. And then the sister says, a feeling only my brothers ever made me feel to this day was fear. She's always been afraid of him. This kind of slightly reminds me of Killua and his brothers' dynamics. How his older brother literally implanted something in his head to make him fearful all the time, to make him, if he encounters a strong enemy, he should always just run type thing, right? But he was afraid of his brother too. I think it was Illumi, right? So, yeah, as you can see here, she was about to like crash out and say, hey, what's wrong? Why'd you kill him? And he's like, and she's like, sorry, it's nothing. So after this whole fight, unfortunately, the great monster that was sealed away by the other Chosens has been released. It's Fenrir. We all know Fenrir, right, from Norse mythology. And it looks totally cool. And it leads or creates a total disaster of a shockwave here. And so Kaido realizes his mistake that, oh man, I'm out of energy. I killed those dudes who were repelling it. Oh boy. And the battle drags on. But then the sister's like, you know what? I'm not gonna let you die. I'm gonna power up to the max. I'm gonna share a portion of my power with you. We're gonna use the divine core and let loose everything we got. And so the real battle begins. All out fight. Kaido summons all of his monsters and they end up beating the great Fenrir over here. And in this moment of, well, I suppose, success, there is a bit of regret in Kaido's eyes, realizing that he's gone too far, which is nice to see because it's like, yeah, he can be human. But what I like the most here is when the sister says, I can read him now, tame him. I'll have to be careful and stronger, right? So that part is interesting where in a way this the safe spaceness is one-sided. She never feels safe with him, but he always feels safe with her. It's a very interesting dynamic, right? Very interesting dynamic. These little social dynamics, interpersonal relationships with characters in a story with a giant scale of this degree is very important, right? Because it means it's character driven, right? It's character driven, so it's not so heavy duty plot driven, because the plot driven stuff is what would get canceled day one in Japan, right? Manga generally is character driven, and that's why it's on the Coffee Originals website, right? We deal with character driven narratives over here. So 2 weeks later, we conclude with the fact that they have been promoted to join the final assault squad against the final monster, and this is their captain. But the final page seems to be Hassan coming back. I don't know how he reattached his head, but oh well, right? Oh well. But that's it. That is the end of the one shot. A great ride, a giant scale, great art, nice character designs, very appealing, right? Nicely relatable, extremely familiar. However, the hopeful aspect, it's lacking. These guys are going to lose their powers at 30. After that, they're going to have a short lifespan. And doing what exactly? Right? Living in a wasteland. See what I mean? So there's not much hope. There's not much inspiration either because they were born with superpowers. So no one can go beyond, right? They can go beyond their own limits, but it was already predetermined that they just super powerful. On top of that, the main characters are the strongest, one of the strongest already. And this is the issue with I've seen a lot of indie dudes when they create their mangas, they start off with a character who's ultra strong, right? Or even in Shonen Jump lately, like Ichi the Witch, the guy is very strong already, barely losing the first fight. Same thing with Kagurabashi. It's like power fantasies, right? Peak, fire, transformations so quickly in the story. Like, no, there needs to be organic growth. Now, because this was a one shot, dude had to pick up the pace, right? So I understand. Do I think that this should be a series? Honestly, I do. I honestly think, though Luck is working on Phenomena, right? He's working on Phenomena as well, which is the serialized series right now. I think maybe, you can do what Maxwell is doing, because he's working on Crossblade and Dream. You could maybe ask him how he divides his attention with those two, right? So I think it's worth it, especially if there's something you would like to say that can be better delivered with the story of Kishin, right? Instead of trying to cram in everything you're trying to say with just one story. And trust me, already the latest chapter of Phenomena, it was great. I went through it a couple of times, and the amount of detail. Now, this part I could say a bit of a exposition. It was hardcore. It was hardcore, bro. I ain't gonna lie. But that's not what we're talking about over here, right? At the end of the day, I do think Kishin deserves to be serialized. But hey, you can only do so much, right? You can only do so much. But at the end of the day, in terms of the MANAA ingredients, it's only got 2. So what's the overall score out of 10? Well, it's captivating. It is compelling. But because the characters are not likable, because the characters' main goals are so profoundly mediocre, unfortunately, I'm going to have to give it a 6.5. I'm going to have to give it a 6.5, right? I'm going to have to give it a 6.5, right? Aside from compositional issues where it's hard to see over here, and my reading experience, my reading tempo is disturbed because the composition was off, or I had to decipher what the character was doing in that pose. I'm gonna have to give it that 6.5. But overall, it is a nice, pleasant experience. It feels like a video game, right? So I do recommend people check it out. And that's it for this one. So if you'd like your own paid reviews, $35, right, for 60 pages. If you want to join the Coffee 24-hour crash course program, that's $100 where we go through everything, right? Beef up your skills in just 24 hours, right? You will be better off. So yeah, y'all, you interested in that paid review? Send a DM today, including the 24-hour crash course. Until next time.